Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fahzaly Advice. I do appreciate all of you that have been supporting me, have been watching this series, and have been enjoying the podcast. I truly hope that you have found value in my words and that I have been able to help someone out there. Now, this video is going to be a little bit different because I had to edit this in as there was a small error and I had to record this after I had already finished editing the episode. So I will have a different shirt, and you will notice that I have a little bit of an eye infection, and that's just because I had to re-record it, and right now today I'm going through this right now. But I digress. We're here to talk about someone who needs some advice. And we'll start off today with our first submission that comes into us from Caught in the Middle. And they write, "Dear Fahza, my best friend, let's call her Felicity, and her boyfriend, let's call him Chris, have been together for 2 years. Their relationship had a complicated start. She loved him for a long time before they got together. In fact, Chris was Felicity's brother's best friend. Sadly, he passed away a few years ago, and it was after his funeral they got together. Things started off great, but lately all of her friends, myself included of course, have noticed that they have been fighting more and more over time. There have been times when we were going out to dinner and an argument would begin, causing Chris to walk out, leaving Felicity with me to drive her home. I have even gotten called to pick up Felicity because they had an argument and Chris left her stranded. During the many arguments I have witnessed, it seems it's both of them. Sometimes Chris starts it, sometimes Felicity starts it. Both of them have pretty explosive tempers. Many arguments end with me being the negotiator between them, and I am at the end of my wits. What am I supposed to do here? Please help, Fahza." Signed, Caught in the Middle. Alright. Well, caught in the middle. This situation might seem complicated, and you might think that there is a lot to consider here. And of course, with every situation, as I always say, there is context and nuance to be considered. But the solution is a lot simpler than you think. Back away. It's their relationship, it's their problems. It is not for you to take responsibility here. You are putting weight upon your shoulders that you need not carry, because you are their friend. You are not their therapist, you are not their mediator, you are not their parent. You are their friend. And if your best friend, Felicity, would take a step back and realize the position that she is putting you in, I would verily hope that she would be just a little bit ashamed that she put you in that position unnecessarily because of her drama. I understand you want to be a good friend, and that is 100% commendable. No one should chastise you for that. But you, yourself, deserve better than to be placed in the middle of a situation that you have no stake in. You may care for both of these individuals, but that care should not be a detriment. That care should not take away, and that care should not cause you stress to a point where you feel like you have to be there to be the negotiator. And I'm not saying that you did anything wrong. As I said, your want to be a friend is commendable. But the fact that you don't consider yourself in these situations which I seem to see in the way that you're speaking here in this particular submission and your actions. You're lost because you're not considering yourself. And that is sad, because you deserve to be considered. You deserve better than that from yourself and from your friend here, whom you quote Felicity, and from her boyfriend Chris. And their arguments, and even him walking away and just leaving her high and dry. That in itself is its own issue, but that is not necessarily the situation that was brought forward here. What was brought forward is your plight caught in the middle. And the reason why I want to focus on this is because I don't think you're focusing enough on yourself. You bring this situation in a way that you put yourself as a third party. But you are the one that's dealing with the stress because of the fact that, one, you've placed yourself in the middle there because you believe that you need to be there, but you don't. Two, your friends aren't considering the fact that you're there, they're simply taking advantage of the fact that you're there, placing weight upon you that need not be there. And to be honest, shame on them for that. As I said, you deserve better, caught in the middle. And I think that this is something that a lot of people seem to forget to consider as friends. We make exceptions for our friends. We make considerations for our friends. But if they truly are our friend, would they really want us to do that in a way that would cause us, in any way, shape, or form, an inconvenience or suffering? Would a true friend really want that for you? I would think not. I would say, in truth, for me personally, this might not be the truth for everybody. Remember, truths are subjective when it comes to something as objective and subjective as morality and the like. So please take what I say with a grain of salt, because this might not align with your philosophies. But me personally, my friends matter to me and are my whole world. But at the same time, I also have to consider myself in that world. Why? Because I'm part of it. And if I am not to be considered, then what am I? A thought process that I see so many people just completely ignore and not even consider, because they want the perception of being a good person. But truth of the matter is, you worry about your friends, you worry about these things. You are a good person. You need not worry about the perception. You simply need to worry about the action. And your actions are good. But, once again, there also needs to be the considering of oneself. And in that consideration, you need to realize that these problems are not yours. You did not cause them. And thus, it is not your responsibility to find that solution or to be the solution. These two, Felicity and Chris, as they are dubbed here in this submission, have a responsibility to each other and to themselves to shoulder and take accountability and responsibility for their own problems, not to slough them off upon others. That is a very selfish act. And I want you to consider that. To consider that that particular act in itself is selfish and disingenuous to you as their friend. And I'm not telling you to be outraged. I'm not telling you to take action against your friends. I'm just telling you to consider yourself. One of my best friends does this so very often. They care. They care so much that they forget that they exist. And it breaks my heart, because people like that deserve to be considered. They are gems of kindness in this world, and they need to be cherished. And they are an example. People who care are an example, because compassion is sadly, slowly becoming more and more extinct, because we allow it to through the acts of apathy and simply just rolling through the motions and believing that that's how it has to be. But that is not a truth. That is an ignorance and a lie. It is what it is something that is never true. It never is what it is. It is what you want to make of it and what you're willing to work for. And the one thing that is truly worth working for is you. Because you are the one living life. You are the one experiencing it. Do not take that for granted. Because you deserve better. So, caught in the middle, please, or at least for a moment, consider this. It's not being a bad friend stepping back. It isn't. It's being a bad friend thinking that they have the right to push their problems upon others. That's their responsibility to take accountability for. That's their baggage. Kindness and compassion is one thing, but being a doormat is another. So caught in the middle, I hope you consider what I say, and you find value in my words, and that you find value in yourself. Alright? It's okay to step back. It is. It's not stepping away. It is making sure that you put yourself into a position where you are not given unnecessary obligation. Being a friend is being there to listen, not being there to shoulder the weight. Although there are times where friends simply do that, and that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's a matter of whether or not they are conscious of what they are doing, and whether or not they can be grateful of the fact that you are such a good friend to make such sacrifices when you need not do so. So, caught in the middle, please remember, consider yourself. Alright? Thank you so much. And now, let's get on into the next submission, shall we?
Well, hey everybody! Did you know that asianfahzagamer has a Patreon?
That's right, and Random Skull is here to help tell you about it.
And that's right, we're doing this announcement together.
And when you subscribe to Patreon, you get to see content early, and of course, make requests for content on YouTube, and even on Twitch and TikTok. It's all up to you!
And of course, if you want to support asianfahzagamer, check out these links. And of course, there are also links in the link tree.
And remember, when you subscribe to Patreon, you can also leave a message saying that Random Skull is better than Mr. Announcer.
Now, was that even really necessary?
Alright, welcome back to Fahzaly Advice. Now let's get on into that second submission that comes to us from Loving and Unsure. Dear Fahza, my husband and I have been happily married for more than 30 years. We recently celebrated my 55th birthday. Well, congratulations on 30 happy years, and Well, happy birthday, though it may be belated. Lately, I have been seeing my husband being very active on social media, particularly on Facebook. It started with a Facebook group he found for a Dungeons and Dragons group. He was so happy to find a group to play with, and I was excited for him. The group is a mixed bag of great people. But one day, while I was using the computer, I heard several notifications go off, and I noticed my husband had left his Facebook open on a tab. My husband had several messages from a young woman. She was part of the group as well. I don't really have an excuse for snooping, but I looked at the message chain history. Though the messages started off innocuous and short, I noticed her beginning to start talking about more intimate things with my husband as the messages went on. Soon she would end messages with hearts and winky emojis and start calling my husband dear or honey. Now, in the messages back, my husband didn't seem to reciprocate anything, but he also wasn't telling her to stop. I don't know what to do here. Do I confront my husband about this, admitting to him that I violated his privacy? Do I believe in my husband, who has been loyal for 30 years, and just say nothing? I could really use your help here, Fahza. What do you think? Signed, Loving and Unsure. Alright, well, let's get into this one, shall we? Now, loving and unsure. There's going to be a few things that I'm going to bring up that there are people that won't agree with me. But here's the thing. Too often in relationships, people have these expectations. And these expectations are likened to, honestly, a Hallmark movie. It's like we expect people to be perfect. And that's just not fair to our partner. We have to make the consideration that we are human beings. And we have emotions, we have lapses, and there are moments where there are bits of us that get the better of us. Curiosity more often than not. Is this an excuse? No. But it is something to be considered on both sides. Because in every instance in life, context and nuance needs to be considered. This is something you will hear me say consistently, constantly. I've said it in every episode so far, and I will continue to do so because it is something that it needs to be considered. And it is so seldom done these days, and it leads to more problems when a simple consideration could put you in someone else's shoes so easily and help you understand where they may have been coming from and give you an idea of just why this could have happened, why something that you may not be ready for may have occurred. It may blindside you, but being able to step into their shoes may give you a perspective that you didn't have before. And it will help open more doors rather than add to the totality of, well, so much unhappiness that is around. Understanding and compassion are things that are taken for granted so readily. But I digress. Now, when it comes to this particular situation, one, it's kind of awesome that your husband is a D&D person. I am a D&D person. I absolutely love the game. And I'm glad that you were excited for him. Now, when it comes to this particular instance, in this particular situation, you can't take back what you did, nor can you simply forget what you saw. That's not exactly how it works. All you're going to do is put yourself into a position that may just garner resentment, when these situations could be alleviated by communication. Relationships are built on communication. And it's a simple aspect that can have its own complications, that allows people to take it for granted, to overlook something as simple as talking, as speaking your mind. Subtext, more often than not, is where relationships go to die because you're too busy building walls rather than working on bringing them down so that you can be partners together. Now, like I said, you can't take back what you did, nor can you forget what you saw so easily. My recommendation, communication. Talk to your husband. Talk to him. Let him know that you were on the computer. A bunch of notifications came. Be truthful about it. You don't really know what came over you, but you were curious and you just let that overtake you. And you just decided to look at what you saw. And explain to him from your perspective what you saw. As well as keep in mind that as you're explaining this to him, don't be accusatory, as there's nothing to accuse him of as of yet, right? As you stated, he did not reciprocate. The only thing he did not do is tell her to stop. But there's also to be considered that, well, as this is not the case for everyone, but there are many people out there that are simply oblivious to the nature of being flirtatious. Your husband, you know him better than anybody. He might simply just be completely oblivious to these kind of things. And you might have forgotten that because of the situation of what you saw and how quickly it hit you. It, like I said, may have blindsided you. But I want you to consider this, that he may just be oblivious. And that might be the reason why he didn't tell her to stop, because he's just simply thinking about D&D. Hyperfixations are a thing. They happen. And it doesn't matter how old you are, especially with how excited he was about this particular D&D group and finding it on Facebook and being able to play D&D again. I understand that excitement wholeheartedly. It's the same excitement that some people might get when they win a jackpot or when they achieve something, get something that they want. The elation is quite similar. And it adds to a simple happiness. And I'm glad that you were able to see that and be excited for him. But as I reread this particular submission and consider more and more of what you're saying here, you have been together for 30 years. And the way that you're talking about it, it seems that he has not given you any single bit of cause to consider anything other than he loves you. Maybe that's all he sees. Maybe that it's hard for some people to consider this. It is. But maybe to him, there is nothing more than you when it comes to romantic feelings. And anything else is simply words. And he just doesn't see it. I understand your concern, but your concern maybe should be more geared towards this particular young woman who has been messaging your husband and getting increasingly, well, crossing the line. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it other than she seems to be crossing a line. And it makes you uncomfortable. And if your husband, from what I can assume here, remember, this is a lot of assumption. But from what I can assume here, from what you've submitted, your husband loves you. And if something is bothering you, he would want to hear about it. Not for you to be silent. Despite the fact that you may have violated his privacy. Your words, you that's what you wrote. I'm just saying. Despite the fact that you may have violated his privacy, he may not even care. To him, I think the more important thing, because he loves you, is the fact that something is bothering you. And he would want to know. He would want you to say something so that he could do something about it. Because he, like I said, might be completely oblivious. And if he is oblivious and so, he doesn't know. And the moment you bring it to light, he's going to do something about it. He's going to put a stop to it. He's going to tell this young lady, hey, I'm not for that. I'm here for D&D. He's been with you for 30 years. Now, of course, context and nuance. There's a lot to be considered. There's a lot that I don't know. I don't know how your relationship is. But you write it in a way that you've been happy for 30 years and celebrated 55th birthday together. And you write about him. I do apologize. I just hit my mic. But you write about him in such a way that I can tell you love him too. So don't let your apprehension of the potential consequences stop your relationship from being what it is. Beautiful. And a partnership. Talk to him. There's nothing wrong with speaking to him. And taking accountability. As I said, we are human. You are a human being. There are times where things will overtake us and we will make rash actions, even small things. And though it's not an excuse, it's not. It just needs to be considered. And the people that love us will consider that. Don't give your husband the chance. That is the best thing I can say to you, loving and unsure. Give your husband a chance. You've been married for 30 years. You've been betting on this man for 30 years. Why stop now? Don't let this moment be the moment that you start closing off. Continue to open. Continue the communication and the love that you have had and grown for 30 years. Let it continue to grow in this moment. Because in a relationship, it's about the good times, the bad times, and all of the times in between. But most importantly, it's about facing them together. Alright? And I truly hope this helps you, loving and unsure. I do. And I hope this helps anyone who's in a similar situation. I appreciate you joining me for today's Fahzaly Advice. And I hope that you have a wonderful day. And of course, if you do want your submission to be read live on podcast, please do consider the email at the very end of the podcast, fahzalyadvice@gmail.com. All submissions are 100% anonymous unless otherwise requested. Thank you so very much, and have a wonderful day. And of course, love train rolling on through. Choo choo. I love every single freaking one of you. Well, everybody, that's the end of Fahzaly Advice. I hope you did enjoy this episode and you found some value in what I said. And of course, if you are interested in participating, if you need some advice or some perspective, feel free to email the address at the end of this part. And remember, all submissions are 100% anonymous. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Need some perspective? Need some advice? Want your submission read on podcast? Well, email Fahza at fahzalyadvice@gmail.com. And remember, all submissions are 100% anonymous unless requested upon.